Hello, hello, hello.
Welcome
Where am
back,
I?
everybody.
This one. Hello. Here we are. On the screen. Viewing
Ah,
things.
there we go. We have appeared
I'm checking one
in
thing
full view.
very quickly.
And look at this lovely creation we have up here.
Indeed. For those who don't know, this is going to be Felix. Felix is a character that was partially created by chat last
Yes,
Thursday.
on Thursday.
Yes, and he's pretty great. He's pretty grand. And so we're giving him like a true design, right? Like I kind of drew him in like 30 minutes total, you know, and everything. So we're gonna give him a little whoop, a little whoop.
Little bit of a makeover and
Yeah. I don't want to say
a glow up. We're gonna give him a glow
yeah.
up.
It's like not a full redesign because he wasn't really fully designed, but you know we're keeping all the important chat things that chat specifically decided on, and why he matters. I think I will tell. Not now. That's a secret.
Hey, if that's how you'd like to use us, Bart Starter, I mean, you tell us. Is that a win-win situation? Are we ASMR enough
Yes,
to
I mean that you know,
decent background drawing and sleeping noise?
more than happy if you decide to utilize us that way. I will
Absolutely.
speak quieter and
Because
not.
that's a podcast.
I won't.
Yeah, we all
Which
soothing, like. Maybe not too much. That's weird. I can't guarantee it'll stay that way, Bart Starter. We might get cinder bombed
That is
later
very
on.
true. However,
That might wake you up.
usually he's pretty chill. I know that Grenade has fallen asleep to both us and Cinder in the past, so it is
Impressive.
possible. It is definitely a possibility. I'm sorry, I'm just posting an item to Unearthed Arcana, hopefully with the intent that Hans will get to see it this evening in about half an hour, less couple minutes, when he does Unearth
fingers
my
crossed.
Arcana. You know, it's just here for him to enjoy.
Hey, if he enjoys, more power to him.
Indeed. Let me correct this. I didn't get the whole thing. Alrighty. And edit. Paste the whole thing in there this time. And there we go. All success. All done. All good.
Bravo,
Okay.
bravo.
Yes. He's a fun thing to see now this evening. Okay. Drawing, I think definitely it's a very easy thing to have us in the background for. Sleeping, you know, that one's a little less. But so I think all right then, Bart Starter. Well, we will definitely look forward to your verdict on whether or not you managed or not. So,
Artstar, I hear you. I have had to sleep through some noises when I dormed at college. Various noises, for lack of a better word.
the tone of the word noises in this entire thing is very very
I mean, just
concerning.
from tone alone, you could probably surmise
I'm
what
very
I'm
much
talking about.
assuming what these noises likely are, and they're definitely
They were not quiet.
Yeah,
They were
it's
definitely not
fortunate.
quiet.
That's incredibly
Tragically,
unfortunate. How dare
as
they
it
not
was.
be at least a little bit considerate, right? Like,
You know, you would think on a weekday night,
just a
and
tad.
knowing that dorm walls are made of paper mache,
Okay.
you would think, right?
Can I tell my favorite dorm story about what I heard through the wall? It's great. It's not even explicit
Yes.
at all.
Please.
So for the freshman year, I shared my dorm ended up actually being, and this was all luck, next to somebody that I had become friends with from this trip that goes from where we live by bus up to my college. And as people who have been accepted but haven't like committed to a college yet, it was like a whole thing to try and get you to go and like to show off the school, and you get to like stay over and whatever. So this person that I met on this trip and ended up being with a group with and became very good friends with ended up being in the dorm room next to mine. Okay, directly next to mine. And the
Wow,
wall...
Bart Starter.
Damn.
I mean, considering you're here, I'm gonna say I'm glad you were safe.
Yeah. You know, it's a skill now, right? You leveled up. And
One way to describe it.
that's how we describe everything in life. You leveled up, okay? That's it. That's all your options. But so the wall that we shared was also the wall that was the back wall of the bathroom. So the toilet room. So you have the vanity at the end of the room with the shower and the toilet, and the toilet sat on the wall that was shared with this dorm. And I believe that, layout wise, that the toilet literally backed up to someone's desk in the other room. So I'm using the toilet, and suddenly I hear music, very faint music, definitely coming through the other wall, and it's a song that I know. So I have both the phone numbers of the people who live next door to me, right? Because they were my friends and everything. Mm-hmm. Exactly, level 3 Bart starter, and so I texted them, and I'm like, Bone Trousel, good choice, because it was Bone Trousel from Undertale. I'm just sitting on the toilet, taking my sweet time.
On the toilet, you're just trying to enjoy your time, and all of a sudden,
that's Megalovania, right? Bone Trussell goes, yeah, exactly. So I'm just sitting that as I'm doing my business, and I just text because I'm pretty sure I knew which one it was. So I text him, and I'm like, "So Bone Trousel to study by, huh?"
Did he respond?
What? He's like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, I can hear you in my bath." It's just like I'm like right in front of you right now, essentially.
Oh,
he's like,
God,
dorm walls.
Dorm walls, indeed.
Dorm walls. Yeah, 2015,
right?
Exactly.
Sorry, doesn't that just unlock memories? It's like unlocking a hidden memory. It took me a second to get there. Barstar, mark your Ori sings card.
Oh, you're right. What was that? I was gonna say, so I subscribe to Amazon Music. Because I already have Amazon Prime, so it's like $1 cheaper than Spotify, and that's literally the only reason I was thinking about changing over, because I found a website that'll actually like sync your music playlist,
very
so
nice.
it makes it really easy to switch. But it is technically $1 more expensive, and so I was like,
Oof.
Not feeling it right now. And so, but on Amazon Music, they have like a thing that every Monday they give you like your discovery playlist, right? So I listen to it when I'm like on a music kick, because it's like I need more music all the time. I need all the music that relates to our comic boys and everything. I need it really bad. And I'm listening to it, and one of the songs that came up was like an Undertale like song. That was to is it Toriel's theme? It's like the very classic, like when you think of Undertale and you don't think of Megalovania, it's that song. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Does it go da 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 da?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That one.
I think it's just called Undertale.
Okay. Yeah, it was like someone put lyrics and stuff to that song. It was
I love it when people do that.
Nice. My favorite thing, and one of my favorite songs, is by Go Child, which does Enigma Mars, which is, top tier song.
I know that one.
They made a song that's called Ruinous, and it's about the Sans fight, and it involves the Megalovania theme. But it's like very subtle.
Cool.
So it's one of those things where it's like it's just a song, but unless you know Megalovania, you only kind of like hear it.
It's got the hidden meaning.
It's like in there, and it's really, really good.
I love songs that have that, like the little hidden meaning that goes along with it. It's so good. It just gives you more appreciation for it as well.
Okay, I have to look up James again. Come here, James. Okay, there's too much of a fandom that surrounds Liberty Kids that I didn't know about, and I'm honestly
You
kind of
started
concerned.
looking it up too?
No, I looked it up because I was I actually literally used him as reference for Felix. Like I specifically want his ponytail to be like James's ponytail. Like it was very specific to me. Like I had this very specific idea of it. And you look it up on Google and it's just like, no, there's a fandom for this, and it's like, I didn't realize there was a fandom for this. Like, okay, Jesus.
Yes, there is a whole fandom for it. They definitely
I see
appreciate the Sarah and James ship for sure. I just learned that James is 14 years old in the show.
Was that higher or lower than you expected?
That was much lower than I expected.
That was right around what I expected, if I'm being honest.
Really?
I thought it was like 15, yeah, 14, 15.
I was thinking 16, 17
oh,
at the
no,
very
no.
least.
I was definitely, he was like, no. Look at him.
Oh, man.
He's got
I
that
guess
childlike
you're right.
face. Look how smushed his face is. Like, come on.
He is very childlike. I will admit.
What was I gonna say though? Hell, I was literally gonna say this. Oh, Kim Possible was on was an answer on Jeopardy, the one we watched. So this past week, yeah, because we're a little behind.
Very nice.
Okay, this is not doing what I want it to do. But yeah, so that was fun. Bless you. Stop that. Stop it. What did I tell you? What did I say? Come on.
Sorry, Ori.
I can't believe you would do this to me.
I didn't mean to.
See,
I seriously need to go vacuum my room.
They just give it like this, and I don't know what the vibe is or not. Yes. In my family, Bart Starter, we say... we say bless you 10 times.
In her family, she's just like, shut up, knock it off.
Yeah.
Stop that.
Some of my family will say bless you 10 times, and then it's just like that's all you get. That's it. What if I put them both on this side for this?
That's struggle.
I don't know. Not doing what I want.
Well, what are you trying to do?
I'm trying to, like, in this concept art, he's got it's like a bow, because I really want it to be a bow. But I'm like trying to figure out like how that would look like from the side here, right?
Oh, you're really going for that James Hiller.
Well, he doesn't have a bow. He doesn't have a bow, but like I felt it gave like posh pirate vibes.
PCM.
Yes. So we could start talking about that.
And we'll throw in talks about our brand new boy here as well.
Yes, PCM. This is Felix getting his official design.
Yes. So he won't be in the comic, but instead we've decided to hire him to work for us.
Yes, I'm probably gonna task you, Mars, with a little backstory lore of how we found him and what he is.
Ooh, okay.
Because I think he needs a little lead-in. Honestly, I feel like we're giving him like VTuber lore. You know, what's the word? What happens with debut?
Debut,
like, vibes,
yeah.
You know.
Oh, I love how he looks in that shot.
It's
so good.
Yeah, it's great. I don't know what's happening right now. It's not doing particularly what I want for some reason. It's here's like very flat, and it's oh god.
Uh-oh. Well, Ori's figuring that out. Why don't we talk about some redemptions? You guys for that? I know PCM is. Alrighty. Well, let's get into it. We shan't put it off any longer. So, redemption arcs. Typically reserved for previous antagonists, although I could see a protagonist also having to go through some kind of redemption arc too. Say, for example, just very quick tangent, if you're doing like a liar revealed kind of story. Maybe they have to earn everyone's trust back. That's certainly a way you could do a redemption arc with a protagonist. But for the most part, redemption arcs are reserved for antagonists or villains. And everybody loves to do them. And it makes sense that people would like them, because the message there is that even if you've messed up, you can still either be forgiven or you can make up for your shortcomings. And who doesn't love that kind of message? That's just a hopeful message that we can all relate to in some way, I'm sure. It is very easy to screw up.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Ori knows what I'm talking about. It is so easy to get a redemption arc wrong. And there are a couple ways that can happen. But I think before going into that, we should understand at least the basics of a redemption arc. Essentially, to boil it down, you need the character to understand why what they did was wrong and be sincere about it.
Okay, I'm really sorry to interrupt, Mars. What is the pirate from Genshin Impact?
Which one?
The blue pirate one. He's really hot.
Kaya?
Spell it?
C. No, not C. Kaeya.
Yes, him.
Okay.
Thank you.
Because when you say pirate from Genshin Impact, that does not help me.
He's the one that I think about with the eye patch.
There's Beidou. There's technically Kazuha because he's traveling with Beidou.
No. This guy has the pirate vibes with the eye patch and everything. Like, come on.
I mean, he is obsessed with treasure, and I did at first think he was a pirate.
He's very much a pirate. Is he not a pirate? He could be a pirate.
He's not a pirate.
Oh, well, he's a gorgeous man.
What people have headcanoned him as is basically a potential traitor. Like, they've concocted a whole story for him where he has like a dark past. He's come from the abyss, and eventually he'll turn on Mondstadt one day.
I see. Well, I'm gonna use him as a bit of hair design as well. That's why I needed his name. So continue.
You know, as soon as you said Kaya and I looked at that hairstyle, I was like, okay, that's why you need it.
Yeah, that's why I need it. Okay, go on. I needed it. I'm sorry. My apologies.
Oh, no problem. And if you have anything to add while I'm explaining,
I will.
Jump in at time.
I promise. I will.
But yes, so I personally believe that in order for a redemption arc to work, your character has to be sincere in what they're saying, and they have to truly either want to change or make up for what they've done. And you know, I believe it works that way because I think it's applicable to real life as well. You know, I feel the more you can have something mimic real life, the better it'll resonate with readers and audiences.
So feels better
so that's always the angle I go for. Say what?
It like feels better, right? Like it's believable. You don't have to worry about suspension of disbelief, right?
Exactly.
Like,
and sometimes, like, speaking of traps that make redemption arcs not work, that can definitely be one of the issues, suspension of disbelief. Which can go in a couple different directions, actually. One of the directions is you have made your villain too evil. They have done absolutely heinous things. They should not be forgiven under any circumstances. Yet the characters forgive them anyway. That, I would say, falls into the category suspension of disbelief because it's not believable to the audience. I mean, they have seen this character do absolutely horrible things, and then to see the protagonist just forgive them because the plot demands it, it's one of those situations where it feels less like a choice the character has made and a choice the writer has made.
You feel the hand of the author.
Exactly. That is the way to describe it. You feel the hand of the author. And I think it goes without saying, for any tactic or technique that you want to use in writing, you should be aware that your audience never feels the hand of the author. Your audience should never feel like the character is not making this decision because it's the character's decision. The character's doing this because the author really wants it to happen.
Yeah.
Your audience should never feel that way.
That's pretty unforgettable.
That's incredibly specific.
Oh, no. They're right. They're right. They take
I would agree.
No, you know what's worse, Bart Starter? You know what's worst? Is there's 2 sausages in the fridge, right? You plan to have one for breakfast. Your mother wakes up before you and eats one. However, instead of saving the last one for some other human to eat, she gives it to the dog. Not my story.
Are you sure about that?
Oh, yeah, it's not my story.
Not your story, huh?
No, it's Dylan's story.
Really? Wow.
Real true story.
Poor thing.
We're happy to have you in any form, PCM.
Yes.
Okay, see, there he goes. There it is.
Mobile gets the job done. Oh, there you go. That's a Kaya ponytail.
Kaya, James vibe.
Kaya mixed with James Hiller. Oh, we're not talking about Noof yet. That's
but
Thursday.
We are talking
PCM.
about redemptions.
Yes.
See, PCM, that is why that emoji was #1 in my chat. That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say. You know, I don't know. Dylan, I was telling about when you had there was like 2 sausages that were cooked for dinner, and you planned to eat one for breakfast the next morning, and your mother woke up before you and ate one for breakfast, but instead of leaving the second and final sausage for you to consume for breakfast, she gave it to your dog.
It basically Ori is exposing you on chat.
I'm not exposing him. It's a sad story. I'm talking about unforgivable, heinous acts of terribleness. That's what happened. The dog is innocent. It's not the dog.
Oh yeah, never blame the pup.
Yet I remember it like it was yesterday, Dylan.
Never blame the pup.
You were so upset.
Cruel.
You were so upset.
Oh, the absolute betrayal, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
How dare. But getting back into it. So yeah, you don't want the hand of the writer to take over your story. That's just bad all around. But what goes along with making a good redemption arc is your character that's being redeemed has to work for it. Otherwise, it means nothing. Right? If you just have that character forgiven out of nowhere, it feels very jarring to the audience, especially when it's like, well, wait, they did all these things. Why are they suddenly being forgiven? So they're going to have to put some effort in.
That is true, PCM.
It's not being replaced. That's good. So there are a couple ways that you could have a character put the work in. And it really comes down to what it is about themselves that they need to change. Yes, well, a Bart starter, I was going to say, that is definitely a cop-out way. A self-sacrifice can work, but I think it's only effective if the character has successfully been redeemed and then they die. Like, the character cannot, like, you cannot use self-sacrifice as the method for redemption.
It has to be the ultimate thing at the end. It's not the main point of it.
Now, I have definitely seen some self-sacrifices where they are treated as, like, this is the redemption, and it can work. I mean, I'm trying to think of an example. was about to say Darth Vader, but now I'm not sure if it counts.
As
Because
what are you trying to? As for irredeemable?
no, as a self-sacrifice for redemption.
Oh,
Because while he did die, did he go into that situation knowing he was going to die? He just picked up the Emperor, threw him down a chute to save his son. But did he know the electricity would backfire and like short circuit everything?
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if
No.
that counts as a self-sacrifice through redemption, or redemption through self-sacrifice. I
I would
mean,
say it's pretty close though, because he still like went against the
very
Emperor. You know,
close.
like the Emperor's like powerful shenanigans. You know.
So you could say in that case he was sacrificing his position of power by going against his master to save his son.
And possibly his life. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if, like, you know, Palpatine, you know, lived and then like killed Vader. You know, like that could have been expected.
Oh
you
yeah,
know?
in that scene, Vader is basically handing in his equivalent of a resignation letter.
Yeah. Can't work if there's no boss. Exactly, Bart Starter. So that's the idea, right? Like I think that we can pretty confidently say that Vader knew that like he was very likely to die in that scenario.
Yeah.
You know, whether it was right then or slightly later, you know.
See, this is where I might contrast with someone like Severus Snape from Harry Potter, who was quote unquote redeemed when he died. For those of you who aren't in the know, Severus Snape was a teacher for Harry Potter. He was very terrible to Harry throughout all his years of schooling. Not just to Harry, he was also terrible to all the other students as well, except the Slytherins, because, you know, that was his house. So, of course, he was going to be biased as hell. Oh, yes. But it's revealed upon his death that he loved Harry's mother since they were children, and that everything he had basically done was for her. Like him watching over Harry, him quote unquote protecting Harry.
Watching.
Yeah.
Watching.
Heavy air quotes. And that's why I don't think it's a good redemption. This falls into another pitfall where some authors think if you give a character a really tragic backstory, that'll instantly make them forgivable. Because now you see the tortured soul that lied underneath. You see how bad they had it growing up, and oh, that's why they turned to these bad actions and did these horrible things. No. It's an explanation for why they did those things, but it's not an excuse. And I feel like those kinds of redemptions are far too manipulative, for lack of a better word, in that they're trying to tug on your heartstrings, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, think of the best redemption arc of all time with Zuko. He certainly had a tortured past. He didn't live in a good household. He was abused by his dad, essentially, disowned by his dad as well. But and you see how those actions do affect his later actions. But the story is never telling you he's actually a good guy deep down. There are certainly characters like Uncle Iroh that believe he can be better, but it's he himself who spends literally an entire season working on himself to be better.
And then, when he joins the main characters, he's very incredibly far from just forgiven, right?
Exactly.
Oh my god, Dylan. That's not how it works. Just being the Fire Lord doesn't make you a dick.
No, the position has been changed. Zuko is in charge, so it's all better now. But compare Zuko to Severus Snape. Severus Snape is literally just, here's his tragic backstory, then he dies. Severus Snape never has to work for redemption. He never has to do anything. He never asks Harry to forgive him or apologizes for all the abuse over the years.
Bart Starter's joke is killer.
Oh god.
Jesus.
I just read it.
Jesus Christ.
Well, and call it a hot take. I would say this is where the movies did better than the books. Because in the movie, when Severus Snape dies, he asks Harry to, like, he pulls Harry to look at him, like, after he collects the memory from Snape. And I believe he does say that classic line, like, you have your mother's eyes, but then he also says something about James, like, recognizing Harry as hers and James's kid, which is kind of a bit of a development for Snape, because according to the lore, he's been in love with Lily this whole time and just ignored the fact that James existed after a while and projected a lot of that onto Harry in his later years. In the books, he forces Harry to look at him and just focuses on the your mother's eyes line. And that's it. Like, Severus does not change at all. He is still obsessed with Lily and death. He still did horrible, horrible things in his past. And the story expects us to forgive him because he cared about Harry's mother. And I'm sorry, that is just not enough.
Never enough. Fill your bingo cards, never enough.
Kazori sang again. So there's definitely a lot more pitfalls. I'm sure more will come to mind as I continue talking, but I definitely find the biggest ones are either that the situation is unbelievable and there's too much of by the writer's hand going on, or it's an emotional ploy for redemption.
Okay.
Those are the two biggest ones I have found. At least in media.
Well, so one of them sort of contains the, like, this character. I think that one of the pitfalls of redemptions is the idea that the only way to have a villain these days is to make them redeemable, and making certain villains, like, de facto redeemable. Right, so I think a good example now that I will be very impressed if it doesn't go this way is Claudia and Viren in The Dragon Prince. Now, I am going to spoil for the most recent Dragon Prince season. If you haven't seen it, I'll still give a spoiler warning because it's only been out for so long. So if you don't want that spoiled, mute right now. And mute right now, and we will message in chat when it is safe again. But if not, so in season 4, Viren is actually looking to have some sort of different outlook on life, right? It seems like he's definitely much more like, I just want to accept these 30 days with my daughter and, like, live them to the best of my ability, and, you know, just, like, have, like, a good time, and just, you know, maybe chasing this whole thing is a bad idea. I should just live what I have left of my life and accept death and just be happy, right? Like, bucket list it and end. And Claudia is like, no, I can't let you die. Like, I lost my mother, you know, you're not allowed to leave me too, and I will not let you just accept death and die. So it really sets up this very interesting dynamic that would have been super cool, that where Viren's actually the redeemable one, because he actually has this sort of like, oh my god, what have I done? He was always sort of being manipulated by Aravos, right? Like, it wasn't necessarily all 100% him. Could have been really, really cool, and then actually having Claudia be the one that is, like, was the whole plot of Aravos all along, right?
Oh, that's
And that would have been
interesting.
really, really cool. However, at the very last episode, the very last moment of season 4, we do see Viren go into dark Viren mode, which makes it very, 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 and Claudia have some sort of like light at the end of the tunnel moment. That really makes it like, okay, no, they're hard pushing. Viren is the irredeemable villain, and Claudia is the redeemable one, and it kind of makes it boring, right? Like it kind of makes it boring. I think it would be hi Joffrey Baratheon, but I think it would have been a much more compelling sort of situation if because you can still have villains that are irredeemable but like understandable, right? Like I can very incredibly like relate to the idea of like you would do anything to not have your parent die, right? Now maybe I wouldn't go to the heinous acts that Claudia has supposedly been doing and will do, and kind of how villainy she had become to do that, but I don't necessarily but I still don't need her to be redeemed to make her compelling or relatable, right? Like I think that's the pitfall that they fall into, right?
It up on her own.
You don't have to have a villain. The only way to there isn't only one way to have a irredeemable villain or a compelling villain, because I think you get hung up in the like just evil for evil's sake Disney villain sort of vibes stuff sometimes, and it's like, oh, if they're not like have like tragic backstory that like relates and like gives reason to why they're things, like that automatically makes them redeemable. And I think that's the third pitfall, right? Is that having a kind of sympathetic villain or like a relatable villain where you can totally understand why the world of this person's experience has shaped them to this horrible, horrible line of villainy. Like you can sit there and be like, yeah, if I went through that, like I might go through villainy or something. but I should type spoilers over because they are. But I think that's the other pitfall, right? You know, because Ozai is kind of just evil for evil's sake, right? He wants power, and that's kind of it, right? So you're not compelling. However, God, what's the sister's name?
Oh, Azula?
Azula. Azula is irredeemable. However, you understand why she has incredibly breakdown and is as villainous as possible and all this sort of stuff, because you know, she didn't have the love of her mother like Zuko did, right? Like that one thing, that one little difference in their upbringing is what made, while Azula is still like, I can see why she turned out to be such a bitch, and you have some of those moments that are like light at the end of the tunnel, and then she sort of like regresses until the end where she is again irredeemable. Like that doesn't make her a bad villain. That doesn't make her, you know, like I said, unsympathetic or unrelatable, right? Even though she is irredeemable. And I think that's sort of the line that people sort of like fall into, is that, oh, if they're gonna be sympathetic, they have to be redeemed, right? And it's like, that's not really how it works.
This is where I'd say that sometimes our media reflects a little too much of reality, or too many of our own wants and desires, because I mean, very, very, very rarely are people just born evil. Like usually there is some kind of cause. There's usually something in an upbringing that has caused a person to be the way they are, and that's just psychology. So I think writers and creators especially tend to look at that, because the more something is close to our world, the more we resonate with it, the more we connect with it. But then I think there's also this idea of that, like even when people do something nasty or something really mean, there's still some good in them. Like that's literally what Luke Skywalker says to Vader. I know there's still good in you, and I'm gonna pry it out and dig it out.
Mark your bingo cards.
Yep, here it is. and I'm gonna pry it out and chip it out with a pickaxe until it's free. And I think that could be a very hopeful message for people. We all want to believe that there is good in someone. We don't want to think that there are people around us who are just plain evil. But I think this is also where, like, let the fiction be fiction for a little bit, because villains. I mean, like I think it was PCM who said earlier, we don't really have those big bads anymore. Or if we do, they're usually paired with someone else, like a minion who will eventually be redeemed. Like, and that's an interesting thing too. That I actually, I keep going on tangents, and all these run-on sentences must be so fun to listen to. But
stick around. Don't hack it.
Like that's another method people use as well. Because now it's two birds with one stone, right? If you have two villains, you have one that can be redeemed, but now you can use the way the big baddie treats the minion as a way to make the true villain look even worse, and the minion more sympathetic. So now it's pulling double duty. Now you're kind of doing the two birds, one stone method. Most recent example I can think of is definitely Owl House and Amphibia.
I think what's very interesting is that you can't have a redeemed villain without having a worse evil.
I think it's an incredibly difficult balance.
I don't even see how you could do it. Right. You'd have to have it.
Even in the most popular franchise, like even with Star Wars, Darth Vader is the redeemed character, not Palpatine. Darth Vader is the minion. We thought he was the big bad at first, but then we found out he was answering to someone in an even higher position than him. So that doesn't work. And I'm trying to think of other examples. Zuko, he answered to Ozai. Hunter, he answers to Philip.
Bellows,
King Andreas, he answers to
the knight, the core.
Thank you.
Yeah, the core. You know, I don't. If anybody can think of any sort of well, that's why. Again, back to kind of the Dragon Prince spoilers.
You really love that example
because it had such a moment that was like really cool that Dylan and I really were like, this would be awesome if this is how it ended up, but we really unfortunately don't think it's going to go that way.
Oh man,
is just the idea that Claudia was always the minion, right? Claudia was always the minion to Viren, and Viren is the big bad, but the problem and the reason it could have been so cool is that Viren is also a minion to Erebos, and Erebos is without a doubt the big bad of the entire franchise. Like, there is no question. He is the
like
big
hands
villain.
down, he is
And
bad.
It would have been like the perfect way to have this, where it's like the one you think is the minion's minion, right, really is the bigger, more powerful, eviler, again, you have nothing left to lose sort of character, and that Viren was just the pawn to get to Claudia, right? Like, that would have been the coolest twist. Like, they set it up so well, like, I didn't even think about it, right? And then they just have this whole sort of thing, and then they just rip it away.
And that's always the worst, because it's like when you see more potential in someone being a villain than a redeemed antagonist, you hit a problem, because now you're not. It's again suspending disbelief.
In this case, I don't think it's they did it bad or something. Like, I don't think that it's like unbelievable that Viren's the big, the not redeemed villain.
But I think you see it as a missed opportunity.
Yes, I see it as a missed opportunity for something cooler. New, right? Like how many times do you see that? You don't, right? Like how many times do you have this like third layer villain, right, that allows the lowest man on the totem pole to end up being like the mastermind of the whole thing sort of vibe, right? Like that was set up so well to have that, and I just feel that it's a while it works fine and I'm not upset, like I don't feel like it's like, oh god, why did they go in this direction, this is horrible, to do the classic. It's tried and true, right? Like it's basic. It's the cop out response. Like this is what everybody does. And I think they just had such an opportunity, and now a probably very likely, I would be surprised if it wasn't a missed opportunity to have that be the result, right? And that's why I'm upset about it, and that's why I'm going to keep talking about it, because like that's how I would write a villain redemption thing, where you switch it. Like that would be the coolest thing, right? You know, like next thing, like that's the vibe. And honestly, you know, brainstorming in my head for way years down the line, next comic, right? Like it's a cool, we've got to do that sort of shit.
I feel that,
because
I
it's
mean,
just
doing new stuff is what keeps
well, I mean,
media
that's what we did with
interesting.
That's what we did with Outcast, right? With accidentally making the antagonist the protagonist. Wild.
Here's the interesting thing with our redemption arc, and I think this is different from a lot of other ones, is that the character we will eventually redeem, the big redemption. So it's gonna be similar to Zuko. He's gonna kind of go on a bit of a journey of self-discovery when he has
Hunter vibes.
Nothing left. Definitely Zuko Hunter vibes for sure. But he basically has a journey of self-discovery, not with our main cast though. He gets picked up by another group and goes with them. And at first it does start out like they don't see eye to eye, but then eventually they realize, hey, this guy has nothing, and if he's going to stay here, he's got to learn how to work. So through that work, he's going to start talking with this crew and come to see things from their perspective. But he has to keep an open mind about it and be willing to change. But what's even more interesting about it is that he is likely, at least at first, only going to be redeemed in the audience's eyes. And even then, I think it's a stretch to say it's a full redemption. It's more along the lines that he gets an attitude change and works to be a better person. But I don't know if I'd go so far as to call it a full redemption arc, because I'd say it's a little bit more realistic than that. You know, he grows, he finds out, and he learns.
He fucks around, he finds out.
Exactly, he fucks around, he finds out. It's still up for debate if the main cast is going to, you know, formally forgive him. As that's another thing with some redemption arcs, is they don't have to be acknowledged by the main cast. It's really the audience who's invested in that story. Like this villain has just kind of screwed over the main guys for a while, so why would they really care if this guy's redeemed or not? They might be like, oh, okay, so that means you're gonna stop causing trouble for us, right?
Yeah.
I think if I remember correctly, that's kind of how Zuko at first started out. Like he started working with Iroh in the tea shop, and then he relapsed bad.
Yeah. Tell me about
Very bad.
The boy needs assistance in life.
Well, eventually he got it.
He did.
And then by the time he
Hair
does
redemption.
meet up with the main cast, yes.
You know,
By
he
the
needed
time
he
he
needed
does-
the hair redemption.
Oh, he really did. It was such a better change. He looks good with a full head of hair.
He does.
It's a much better design.
The shaggy is nice. Yeah, if you see him. But
We all do, honestly. I think all of us just sit here and are like, Uncle Iroh is a peace-loving, caring uncle. He just likes his tea. Nah, he's a war criminal.
Yeah, but he didn't actually kill the dragons, so he's all right. He got to do his redeem before we even
before
Yeah,
the
exactly.
series even starts.
Sorry. Yeah, exactly.
Well,
He
it's
got
interesting.
redeemed from the beginning. Like he
It's
was already.
interesting that you say Uncle Iroh's redemption, because I think the reason we as an audience don't really call Iroh out on his past is that throughout the majority of the show, we just see him being a very positive force in Zuko's life. And after we see Zuko's backstory, we as an audience know how desperately he needs that. So by the time all that is revealed, and then they follow up with, oh yeah, Uncle Iroh did commit some crimes, we're kind of like, he's doing all this good stuff in the plot. He's being very sweet to Zuko. He provides some good comic relief. He can be zany at times, which is fun to watch, but he can also kick some asses when he feels like it. By that point, we are totally on his side. Would that have worked as well if we had a series where we did see Uncle Iroh's war crimes, though? Well, I don't know if that would have worked so well.
Yeah, I mean, they did kawaii culture too well. They did it too well. But I think that's very interesting, Mars, because I think another show that has a very similar sort of Iroh vibe, but did it bad, was What Happened with Steven Universe.
Oh.
Because so when you think about it,
right? I am interested that you brought that one up.
Okay, because when you think about it, they had a similar vibe where you learn about current character or most recent version of the character first, and then eventually you go back and you learn about the shit in the past, right? So like when we first meet Iroh, we don't know about all this stuff. We don't know about his son dying. We don't know about him being like top general. Like we don't know all of this stuff. And later on, eventually it comes up a little bit here and there, and we learn about all that, Tales of Ba Sing Se and all that sort of stuff. A similar thing happens with Rose Quartz. When we first talk about Rose Quartz, every time it's the Rose Quartz that was like most recent, right before she, became Steven, right? Like right before that. And we back up in time slowly before we learn that she was Pink Diamond and all the horrible things that she did as Pink Diamond and all these terrible, horrible things. And, that really screws up Steven. And it's one of those interesting things where nobody that I knew about, at least, I don't know about anybody like arguing on the internet about like Iroh was a terrible person and he should never have been forgiven and how dare he do all this stuff. Yet he did heinous things, like logically, you have to infer that, right, when you think about it at any depth at all. And then his son dying sort of like opened his eyes to be like, crap, this is real bad. This is like at my doorstep, right? I've been dumb. And, starts sort of
he sees the consequences of his actions.
Exactly. And sort of starts his redemption arc on his own, and which is what allows him to give Zuko what he needs. In Rose Quartz, right, she's not there. So she doesn't, but she technically does have her redemption, right? Like, she does what she can. She's Pink Diamond, and then she learns about the Earth dying because of the colony, and so she kills pretends to kill Pink Diamond herself so that they can stop the colony so that she can live. Now, did she do it perfectly? No. Did a lot of gems get corrupted and die? Yes. Did it make sort of situations worse in the later on and pass down a generational war to her son? Yes. But the point is not that she's perfect, right? The idea is that she did, at very least, make an attempt, right? Like, she did see, whether you think that she is fully redeemed or not, like, that's your preference. But the idea of that, and she still kept secrets to Pearl, she never let Pearl talk about it. Like, there's definitely, she was not perfect, and I wouldn't call her redeemed. But it's more the idea that, like, she did improve. However, doing this sort of backtrack to this Pink Diamond reveal and everything, puts it in a weird light that makes you honestly absolutely despise her by the end of the series. And I don't.
Agreed. Because I was in the exact same boat as you.
And that's
when I saw
definitely not what the intention of the story was, right? Like, that is not what the writers meant to do. Because at the end, like, Steven sort of realizes what, you know, that, like, oh, like, this is her in the far past, and then, you know, her now, right before she gave up her form to be him, was at very least significantly better, right? And trying to do better and trying to be better. And was she better? No. Like, not perfect, but like, she saved the earth from being literally sucked dry of nutrients. So, you know, she did one thing right. And
I think the biggest problem, at least from an audience perspective, is that we are, from the start of the show, we are asked to sympathize with Steven and everything he's going through. So in the first season, we're sympathizing with him that he didn't know his mom very well. Then we get invested in her story, where we learn that she was indeed Pink Diamond, that she told Pearl she couldn't talk about the shattering, the cluster, all of it. And we see how it affects Steven. Like, he goes through a whole period of, I am not me, I am just my mom. These aren't my mom's crimes, these are my crimes. And we see how that weighs on him. It just plays such a role in the story. And the way his birth is interpreted, now that Steven sees himself as his mom, now the audience sees it as, oh, she just escaped every single consequence.
yeah, cop out, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Which is not endearing to an audience. Not at all. Because not only have you made life harder for the main character that we sympathize with and want to see,
I'm the main character,
get
you're supposed to
through
love
everything.
me.
Well, I mean, for the most part, if you do the main character right, like even a character like Light Yagami, even if you don't agree with what he's doing, you still want to see what he's going to do. You're still invested in how he's going to do it. There has to be some level of care, whether that be emotional investment or just, I want to see what they're going to do next. There has to be some level of investment if there's a main character. Oh my gosh, I don't know if you guys can hear my cat meowing in the background, but she is meowing up a storm. Oh my goodness. Hello, kitty. Anyway. And it's like, I don't think the movie makes it any better either, the Steven Universe movie, because then we get introduced to Spinel. And she's the villain of that movie.
Yeah, and she was done hella fucking dirty.
Oh, she was. I don't know if I would call Spinel a redeemed villain, but you understand how she got to the point. She's sympathetic, exactly. Because Rose abandoned her in the garden for a long ass time
Centuries.
And never came back. And we now see how this action that Rose took now affects not only Spinel, but now affects Steven, now affects the diamonds, because the crystal gems, sorry, because they're being attacked now. And
mortally, horribly, incredibly attacked.
Oh yeah, it does not paint her in a good light. Even though you kind of understand those actions, and some could look at that and say, well, I'd like to see you do any better in those situations. You know what? I probably would not. I'd probably make some mistakes, maybe even worse mistakes. But in terms of a story, it just does not endear you to her because of how intense the consequences are.
I think the problem was that telling it backwards is exactly how, like, Steven would figure it out, right? Like, that's just logic. Like, that makes sense, right? You would be told about her most recent things and how good she was now, you know.
And then as he gets older, it very much mirrors how children find out about, like, parents
only
who are no
knew.
longer present in real life.
Yeah.
They start out not knowing much. Maybe someone says, "Oh, I'll tell you when you're older." Steven grows up, he gets older, and he finds out things along the way.
Well, and
It's
his dad,
very
and especially for like a
similar to
gem,
real life.
right? Like his dad only knew part of her life, right? Garnet
Pearl
and
only knew
and
part of
Amethyst
her
only knew
life
part of
because
her
she
life.
only acknowledged one part of her
Well,
life.
Pearl ended up knowing the most, but literally couldn't talk about it. Like it makes sense why he
And you
found out
see
backwards.
the consequences it has on
But
Pearl, too, because Pearl is distraught and traumatized.
I
And again,
think
this is a character we followed since the beginning. We are sympathetic to her. So
I
now
think
we're just looking at Rose and thinking, wow, that bitch, you did that to one of the characters I like.
I think the problem with telling it backwards causes you as an audience member, and Steven goes through it too, right? To stop seeing any part of the good that she did anymore, right?
Yeah.
And now you only see the flaws, and because
Which
they're present.
I wonder if that's an audience insert moment. Like, we only see the flaws, Steven sees only the flaws. I'm wondering if that was intentional.
Because now I might be misremembering, but sort of at the end of the movie and everything, Steven sort of like realizes that it's like, one, I'm not her, two, it wasn't like an escape, and three, that like she did at least try to do better, right? Mm-hmm. And with that, it's kind of like, yeah, but I don't feel that way. Like, I don't feel that way. She was a bitch. And it's like, yes, but she was a bitch like thousands of years ago. And, can people change? And I feel like it's one of those things where it's like, at least with all of the theories and things that I've watched, it doesn't seem like people are in consensus that was the angle that the story meant to take. And that they meant it to be she was redeemed sort of in a way and that everybody's happy in the end. But that's not what we ended up with. Now, can you paint it in a light where it's like, no, maybe that she never did change, but I don't think that's the whole moral of the show, right? Like, that's definitely not the moral of the show, that you can't change. Like, the whole moral of the show is that you can change, that you're not like who you were made to be. Like, that's literally the entire message of the entire show. So it's like,
I'm trying to remember, because they went more into, especially the consequences of all the fighting and trauma that Steven went through in the very final season. And it's like, it just retroactively destroys Rose Quartz.
Roy's quits.
Rose Quartz.
Okay.
But along the same vein, I am very curious, now that I know how passionately you feel about Rose. How did you feel about the diamonds as a whole being redeemed?
So I think it happened very fast. However, I'm not upset by the premise of it. Right? Like because at very least they were painted constantly as like misguided, right? And again, very like, you're programmed this way, that to a point where it even seemed that like, especially Yellow and Blue also felt that they were programmed this way, right? White, a little harder to deal with, but Yellow and Blue, I'm okay with coming around. And they're not perfect right away, and Steven isn't like ready to just be friends and pals. He's like, I want to leave, don't make me stay here with you. Yeah, like, cool, you're not destroying the universe or anything anymore, but like, okay, go do your own thing. And space. Like, so I'm happy about that, right? But I never felt that they were like fully redeemed, and I think that's good, that they need time to continue to work on themselves and work on their actions. But I think the problem with Pink is the idea that she did have thousands of years, and she did change, but I don't like her, and I don't like that I don't like her because she did try, right? Like, there is no doubt that when you look at it in the right timeline, in the right order, that like, she did make a significant effort. She did make a significant change. But the way that the story is told makes me unable to like her. Versus Iroh, who did, honestly, the same shit, right? Like think about it. He had horrible war crimes. He killed hundreds of thousands of people, all this sort of stuff. He did terrible, terrible things. Yet I love Iroh, right? And it's like, because they don't...
It's pretty interesting to compare the two.
They don't come back.
Well, Iroh definitely has the added benefit of still being alive when the story starts.
That is very true.
He can actively continue to improve and work on himself.
You know what
whereas
it is?
Pink is just gone.
You know what it is?
She cannot come back. She can't improve,
no
matter how hard she may want to.
Is the idea that whether it has to do with them being alive when the story is told or not, but Iroh actually gets to treat people better. Rose, while having sort of the vague idea of let's let Garnet be Garnet, and and Amethyst is fine the way she is, she still wasn't great. And, her relationship with Greg is really horrible. And, her relationship with Pearl is incredibly unhealthy and horrible. And, there's no way that she couldn't have known what she was doing, right? And
you'd have to be really naive for that. And I know they always painted her as the younger Diamond, but, thousands of years, man.
Yeah. There's a point where it's too long. Versus Iroh gets to treat, Zuko better. He gets to be on the Avatar's sides. He gets to be part of the White Lotus, right? And whether this is an alive or not thing, I don't really think that it has to be, right? I think, Rose Quartz could have done a lot better while she was alive, and sort of thing. And so it is just they really make her becoming Steven feel like a cop-out. And I don't think that the way that they told the story can fix... I think that's the problem. I think they told the story in a way that makes you feel that way.
I saw a lot of people online, when I think it was season 3 dropped and that reveal happened, with Steven being I am my mom, whatever that episode was.
Yeah.
I remember so many people online lambasting Rose Quartz because it was she realized what a horrible situation she created and got with Greg purposefully so she could escape the situation. She knew that was going to happen. She planned it out. And it's there's no evidence for that exactly, but there's just enough.
It's more that it feels that way.
If you wanted to infer, you could.
I don't even care.
I don't think that was the direction the writers were going, though.
No, I don't think it's the direction the writers wanted to go. And I think that's what makes it a failure. Because there's a difference. If it wasn't the direction that they wanted to go, and if they specifically wanted to show the idea that, not everybody can grow, does grow, will grow, then it could have been good, right? And sort of the idea that, the generational burdens are not your fault, Steven's sort of thing, right? And that whole thing. And that would have been...
the idea that so many kids place their parents on pedestals, and oftentimes those pedestals just crumble as you start to learn more and more. But it can happen.
The thing that made it a problem is the very almost blatant fact that is definitely not the story that the show was trying to tell. And I think that's what makes it
not
difficult.
The intention.
Yeah. And I think that's what makes it upsetting. Is that one specific fact.
So, well, you've just heard a whole tangent about how not to do a redemption arc. Hope you guys liked hearing about Steven Universe for a bit, but honestly,
hello, Audio Chaos.
It's a pretty good case study for...
I think it's a good, yeah.
It could have worked. It could have.
I think
I
they just
see
did
a
it
universe
wrong.
where it did, but with the way the story was set up, with the way... I think the order of the information and the way it was discovered too.
I think that's the biggest part.
Might have hurt as well.
I think that's
because
the biggest part.
While I understand, I think they were going for the angle that Steven starts off with his mother on a pedestal, and then that all comes crashing down later on. I think that was always the intention. The problem is, I don't think we were given enough quote-unquote redeeming acts before they dumped all the heinous ones on us mid-series.
Or what should have happened is that we should have had more redeeming acts. Right, like we should have had them
I think we should have
sprinkled
had
in.
way more redeeming. We should have had a lot more stuff with Greg and her, like just getting to know each other and her like actually respecting him.
Yeah.
And not just seeing him as like, oh, a human, how interesting.
Because they only have like
always the vibe.
The one fuse moment, and honestly, it doesn't feel like they sort of worked it out in the end. You know, I don't know. It always sort of feels like it's like, this is a fun human study. You know, and I don't know.
Yeah. It wasn't even that. To me, it always felt like a kid with a new toy.
Yeah.
And I was just like,
and they just really...
That's not the vibe for a couple.
Well, they get that vibe. And then we get the Pearl shit, and then we get the Spinel shit, and it just really drives the whole thing home. And I think that's the problem.
It was too much all at once. I think
that the problem is that they had...
Unless the writers intended for Rose Quartz to be hated, in which case, bravo.
I just can't. I would be impressed if that was the intention. You know, just sort of the whole general vibe of the show.
It went so far in that direction, though. That I almost wonder if it was the intention.
Because I think
after that mid-season moment, there was nothing about Rose Quartz being good ever again. Steven just kind of had to make his peace with like, yeah, my mom did horrible things, but those are not my fault or my burden to bear. And that was the lesson that was learned. Not that, hey, she did some good things, she did some bad things. It was just, I'm not my mother's son. I'm not going to repeat her actions. I'm going to be better than that, and I'm not responsible for what she's done.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the lesson learned.
Because I think that if there was just more sort of like, if the relationship with Rose and Greg was way healthier and better, then we could have seen that it grew from Spinel to Pearl.
And it would
Greg.
Also show people that she did have Steven out of love and not an escape method.
Yeah. And so it's very
that probably would have helped a lot of people be more sympathetic.
Yeah. So it's I guess the problem is that it's very ambiguous. Right? Is it doing what it did?
It leaves you to draw your own conclusion. And you know, it's not a common pitfall. Because very rarely do you see redemption arcs be ambiguous. It's either this character is redeemed
divisive.
and forgiven, or they're not. This is probably the first one I can think of, aside from internal debate among the HP community about Snape, over whether or not a character was redeemed. According to the story, Severus Snape was redeemed, but amongst the fandom, it's very divisive. I think Steven Universe is the only example where I can think of whether like the show doesn't even seem to know if she's redeemed or not.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what makes it very weird.
You know, I'm all up for leaving stuff up to audience interpretation. I'm all up for like having a line that makes people think a bit more, or having an expression or a panel that makes people think, could this relate back to something from earlier? I am all for that shit. That is like my bread and butter. You don't really want to do that with a redemption arc. I feel like that is something people need a clear answer on.
I think it depends on what your story is. Dylan makes a good point where he you know, joking or not, it would be cool, Dylan. He'd like to make a story that's like Rose Quartz things reversed, but the point is to get you to hate the person, even though they shouldn't be hated. And the idea is for the audience to ponder some moral question. With that,
I think that's called Code Geass.
Well, but the idea is that you have a very distinct goal, right? Making a moral quandary, specifically with the intent of making the audience question morality and everything like that, right? That's
and usually people who go that route have
like
something to say about the human condition.
Yeah. That's not what Steven Universe felt like the whole time.
Hey, Atathis.
Oh, hello, Atathis.
Welcome.
We're having a Steven Universe rant, if I'm being honest. It has to do with redemptions, though.
Talking about redemptions.
It has to do with redemptions. We're not on that far of a tangent. And
Not too far. We've just been talking about one category for a very long time.
a
About
Tethys.
one very specific series.
We're doing Phoenix. What thingy PCM?
What do you mean thingy PCM?
Oh, the PNG tuber stuff? Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, okay. I promised...
Confirmed.
Yes, I promised PCM that we would do very quick. So you go to this website. Hello, it's Kaya. You go to, it's reactive.fuji.tech. Okay, you see it right there. reactive.fuji.tech. And essentially what you do is it'll have you log in, and you log in with your Discord. And then you get this screen, and it'll have your Discord icon as the default image. So you get to choose your file. And so you just pick any file, and you would choose the file, and then you choose the active file. So the active is the one where you're talking. So you have two different files, and then you would save it. Now you don't have to choose it. It will just do like your Discord profile picture. Then you have all of these sort of effects over here. Now whoever is streaming with OBS, which I'm pretty sure is you, if I remember correctly, this is for you, right? So what anybody else does for their own thing doesn't affect you. This is for everybody. So if I say like dim other active images and I click apply, now Mars is dim when she's not talking. Now if I dim my own active image, now I'm dim when I'm not talking. So, you know.
That's cool.
The bounce effect would apply to both of us. Now I bounce a little bit every time. So, all that sort of stuff. What you then, and you can show names. I don't know where that goes. It's like above our heads or something. I don't even know. But yeah, so that affects everybody in the thing. Then you pick, so after you've set up your image, you would then go down here, and it says, you can't really see it. Go down here, and it says individual browser source, and then it'll say like your Discord name. You want to copy that one, and then you want to go into OBS, and you want to make a browser source, and you want to paste that in there, and then you have your person. You need everybody in your Discord call to do this for themselves and give you their individual browser source. And you need to make new browser sources in your OBS scene for every single one of them. So I have Mars's, I have Dylan's, I have Cinder's. So anytime they edit their images, it'll automatically happen. Their images will pop up and go away when they're in the Discord call with you. They have to be in a Discord call with you in order for this to work. So if Mars was to like leave the Discord call, she would just disappear. That's how Cinder can like pop in and pop out, is because he just joins the Discord call and his thing shows up, and then he leaves and then it goes away, and that sort of thing. Are there any questions?
That was a pretty solid lesson.
Yes, I hope so. All right, I'll go with no.
Very cool.
So yeah, reactive.
The more you know.
.fuji.tech TECH. Okay.
Very thorough.
I'm glad. Okay, that was our little tangent.
It wouldn't be one of our streams if we didn't go off on a tangent.
Well, I saw PCM streaming D&D the other day, and I was like, I don't know who anybody is. Thank you
for joining us, PCM. Thanks for helping us with words on stream.
Yes. No worries. Early streams happen. I at least had some streaming knowledge before Mars and I joined, but then I kind of like, I learned on the fly. Internet is your best friend.
Oh, very.
I can't wait till the Felix things come to fruition. It'll just take
forever.
Oh
my god, I'm so excited for those.
The secrets. The secrets.
No, I agree with what Dylan said, that it would be very interesting to have a story that actively gets you to hate the main character or hate one of the characters, but like what they're doing is for like for their own good reason. Like in their mind it makes sense and they shouldn't be hated for it. I was kind of joking earlier when I said Code Geass is like that, but the more I think about it, that kind of is what Code Geass is. It basically the main character's whole goal throughout that is to create a safe world for his little sister to live in, who uses a wheelchair, so she can't really fight, she can't really protect herself in this harsh world that's usually having giant mech battles every other day. So and he does some like horrible things. I mean, it's basically a war mech anime, so you have people dying left and right. With him being the main cause, he manipulates people to his own advantage, and it's like some really horrible things. But he always brings it back to his original goal. I am doing this for my sister. I am doing this so she can live in a world of peace and without fear that tomorrow won't come. Like that kind of vibe.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, you don't agree with the actions, but you agree with the reasoning behind them. Because it's like, you see it on paper, you're like, oh, that's admirable. You're protecting your sibling. You're trying to make a better world for them and make sure they're taken care of. And I think what kind of endears you to the main character even more in Code Geass is that he does not really plan to be around once this peaceful world comes to fruition. Like, he's like, I am going to make this happen or die trying, but it'll all be worth it just so my little sister can live peacefully. Which, it really endears you to him.
Mm-hmm.
It really does. It's effective. I'm trying to think of any other examples beside Code Geass that might have done that. Definitely not in Western animation. I think Western animation and Western, well, maybe not film, because definitely adult films are not afraid to have their protagonist be a little bit of a jackrabbit. But kids' films, animation, no. Their protagonist either needs to be, well,
no, all the
okay,
scoundrel films, they're good in the end, so I don't know.
exactly. I mean, the only one in recent memory I can think of that didn't have a quote-unquote super nice protagonist, maybe Anne Boon Choi, for how egocentric and self-centered she started out at the beginning of the series.
But the point is that she
But
grows.
that's the point.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so I don't
She
think that
grows,
really counts.
and you realize it was because of Sasha's influence.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And Marcy.
Yeah,
to
for the
kind
most
of an
part,
extent.
Western has very squeaky clean
They like
protagonist.
their growth, right? And I don't have a problem with that. But, you know,
Oh yeah, no,
it's
not at all.
usually
Anne Boon Choi is one of the best protagonists in recent memory for me.
it's very much they start out not great, and then it's like, and then they learn and they grow and they're better.
So if you want to call that a redemption, technically it is, because this character started out one way, was, you know, not the greatest to the people in her life, but she found a way to change and she found a way to be a better person. I would say that's a redemption arc for sure. And that's how it can be accomplished with the protagonist. It's not just villains who get redeemed.
No. Trying to remember. I had something I thought I was going to talk about with redemptions, and now I've forgotten it.
Well, do you have any questions? Chat, if you have questions as well, please drop some questions.
Oh, this is just sort of a little side tangent while chat has time to type anything that they want to type. But I've always thought it's interesting to sort of an idea of telling a story that's actually the protagonist is the villain in the sense, right, where you're not particularly necessarily not in the Code Geass vibe where it's like they have, a full reason for it, but the idea that just like everything's sort of painted in a light or like off screen in a way
Mm-hmm.
where you don't realize that the person that you're following is the one causing all of these problems, like
Oh,
purposefully.
you
And
got an
then
example?
I don't have an example. That's why I think it's a cool
Oh.
idea, right? To like try and do it, because it's that sort of thing where I talked about before, like having the minions minion then become the big bad, right? Is like
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of one that's happened, and that's why it would have been so awesome if it did, but I don't think it will. I'm very sad.
The pain sometimes.
It is pain. Breaking is that up to a point. I'm not sure what that collection of words was supposed to mean, Dylan.
I'm trying to decipher that.
I'm assuming there was a typo, but I can't quite flesh it out.
Please clarify. The midnight brain is
Breaking
kicking
Bad.
in early.
Breaking Bad is what I have said up to a point.
Oh, okay,
I
okay.
see. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Thank you. Oh, mark your bingo cards.
I did say midnight brain. Yes.
You did.
I did. I want to give you guys a fair chance this week.
Don't act like you really did it. Just admit that we're just in all the bingo stuff is just so ingrained into our person.
It's ingrained into my everyday dialogue. It's so sad.
No, it's not sad. It's like saying that, like, Dylan knows certain bingo things, but I know that it doesn't matter. He'll do them anyway, so,
But no, Dylan, I would absolutely say Breaking Bad is along the lines of what Ori described. I haven't seen the entirety of Breaking Bad, to be honest, but I do know that, his actions are spurred because I think he's trying to afford medicine. Is that it?
So I've never seen it, but if I remember correctly, the whole premise is that his wife has cancer, and he is attempting.
Oh, it was his wife, not him.
I believe that's what it was, and he is attempting to afford. Someone has cancer, and he's attempting to give the people a good life. However, while this is good at the beginning, then he sort of just keeps going and gets money hungry, right? So like the power gets to him. That's what I remember. That's what
power corrupts.
Yeah,
I see.
He constantly says he's doing it for his family. He has cancer, and he wants to provide for his family as a breadwinner when he later dies. However, it does seem that like he takes it too far, to the point where it's like, is he really doing this for family anymore, or is he just getting kind of greedy?
It's like it started out for a good reason, but then it got corrupted along the way.
There you go. After a point, he admits he isn't doing it for them. He's doing it for him, and he always was.
Oh.
So okay, so that's what's interesting. He's justifying it to himself, right? It's like he's lying to himself.
My actions are okay because I'm doing this for other people. I'm just being a good husband and father.
Good father, yeah.
I'm just doing what I have to do.
Yep.
It's interesting because having never really seen the show in its entirety myself, I can imagine that a lot of people were still on the main character's side even when he admitted that everything he was doing was for himself.
Because he's dying.
Exactly. And I think people find a bit of relatability in that idea, like, yeah, he's been a school teacher this whole time. He's played it safe for the majority of his life. Like, why shouldn't he live a little? Why shouldn't he indulge a little bit? And even though he's doing it for a wrong reason, like, you don't lose the audience's support. Again, never seen the show myself, but I'm just speculating here. I'd be very curious if that was chat's viewing experience. If any of you have watched the show, Dylan, if you've watched
Yeah,
that show,
Dylan has. I
please,
know Dylan likes it. I believe Dylan has
please
also watched the
tell me what your experience was like. I'm very
spin-off
curious.
of Better Call Saul.
Better Call Saul, yeah.
Well, that has a
Isn't he a
lawyer in it.
lawyer?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. He's a very corrupt lawyer, if I remember correctly. So, you know, I think he's a defense attorney. So,
Ah.
yeah, I might be completely wrong on this. Again, I have never seen any of it. Not
so
even
She-Hulk,
some of
but
it.
grittier.
Is She-Hulk a defense attorney? I thought she was a prosecutor.
I know the show is called Attorney at Law, so
Prosecutors are
I
attorneys.
assumed
it just
attorney.
matters. No, all lawyers are attorneys.
Well, then I have no freaking idea.
It just the words just depend on what side you're on. Yeah, attorney at law just means lawyer. Unless Dylan, I'm completely far afield, but that was my understanding. People IRL fall for some of the toxic masculinity, which is used by the main antagonist to goad Walter White into continuing down his dark path. Hi, Cinder.
Ah. Hey,
How was dinner?
Cinder. That's a late dinner. Holy crow.
Yeah, I know. It was nice. Good.
Awesome. That's what you want dinner to be.
I see.
Oh, okay. That's
see,
the
Dylan.
vibe. Interesting.
Let me do a little of this, I think.
And you know, for one last thing, I can mention about redemption arcs. I did mention when we were talking about how it's usually the minion redeemed and not the big bad. I did briefly mention King Andreas, more as a minion than a redeemed villain, because his quote-unquote redemption doesn't really follow the traditional redemption formula.
Not at all.
You do get the sad backstory with him, though. You find out that his father was pretty harsh on him, expected a lot from him. He was betrayed by one of his closest friends, and his other friendship fell apart due to that falling out. And he's just been trying to live up to his father's legacy in working with the Corps, in trying to get the music box, and invading Earth. When Anne finally beats him down enough, he admits what he's done, and that none of it can be undone. I think if I remember the line correctly, he says, like, there's no going back. Everything I've caused, all the pain I've caused, there's no going back. From there, he's kind of... No, he's not. I think I lied, because then in the next episode, it was like a 3-part finale. It was a wild ride. If you have not seen Amphibia yet, watch Amphibia.
Yeah.
But I do remember in the very last episode, he does help out with the final battle a lot in a very significant way. And they don't draw a ton of attention to it, at least not as much as they could have. But what's significant about his quote-unquote redemption, and why I say it kind of falls outside this typical formula we're used to seeing, is that in the epilogue, we do see that he's now living in Wartwood. He's living amongst the frogs and the toads and everything. But he has chains on him. Like, he is not...
He's not free.
Free man.
They're not just letting him
not
be.
At all.
Letting him
They're
vibe.
not letting him be. This guy has committed crimes.
Heinous crimes. Horrible,
He invaded
terrible
another
crimes.
planet. He was very, I'm just going to say, he was very racist to the other people on his own planet. And he's punished for it.
He was a big meanie.
It's very interesting because he is shown to be content, though. he is smiling in that last shot.
He
But it's
accepted
not
it.
like he got away scot-free. And
Yeah.
that was just such a refreshing way of doing a redemption where it's like, I don't think there was ever a I forgive you for everything you've done speech. There was none of that, at least from what I remember. There was
Nothing.
just a everything I've done, the pain I caused, there's no going back. He shows up for the final battle to assist in a major way, and then he accepts his punishment. That was just so unusual, especially for Western animation. That one has stuck with me for a while.
In that one, I
even
find
even though it just aired over the summer.
Yeah,
But
in that
it's still a departure from the norm.
in that one, I find the redemption is that they didn't kill him.
Yeah.
You know, like that they weren't like, you're done. You forget it. This is the end. We'll at
Yeah,
very least let you.
The acceptance was he was allowed to live in
Yeah.
the same village.
Yeah, in the area that they would
And
like
that he,
to an
he was
extent take
allowed
care
to
of him.
be content.
Yeah, but he has no power anymore.
No.
No
Completely removed.
possibility for power either. So
But I think that also plays into this idea that the character needs to realize what they've done is bad and make an effort to change.
Mhm.
And King Andrias does do that. He explicitly says it in the battle between him and Anne. He says everything he's done is wrong, and he makes up for it in the final battle. And by accepting his punishment, he's showing that he understands the gravity of what he's done. And it's so subtle. It's very subtle because everything in especially animation is done in big grandiose speeches. This one isn't. Aside from the one line when he's fighting with Anne, that's basically it. Maybe a brief line when he helps out in the battle. But it's not this big, like, 5-minute long scene. It's very quick.
What I think is so interesting, and I'm going to lose now. Oh, it's the idea of that. Well, Andreas did do incredibly heinous things. You learn that he was always fighting with himself about it, right? Like, it was never just like, I'm doing this, and this is what I'm doing, and I'm full of resolve, and then I change later on. It's like, no. The whole time, he was like,
Yeah. You see that especially with his connection with Marcy.
Oh, yeah.
He did not want to sacrifice her to the core. He can't even look when
Yeah,
it's happening in that one scene.
He's having such a horrible time. And so that allows him to have any sort of, like, forgiveness, right? Any sort of redemption, any sort of acceptance of, like, okay, maybe he wasn't the worst, absolutely horrible thing. If we didn't have that, I don't think we would have been okay, you know?
Yeah. Definitely Marcy plays a big role in it, I think. Because without that connection, without that humanizing factor that shows like he does actually care, like that's his first friend that he's had in years, and he actually feels bad when he has to go through sacrificing her to the core. If we didn't have that moment, I don't know if the whole thing would fall apart.
It would be less
it would
compelling.
definitely be a harder pill to swallow.
Yeah, a harder sell, definitely. All right. Any closing thoughts, Mars?
Closing thoughts. I would say if you're planning on doing a redemption in your story, the best way to handle it is think it through logically. I mean, you may want to see this
And
character
foreshadowing.
redeemed. You may want them to be buddy with the protagonist. But always ask yourself, is that the natural course this story would take, or is this just something I'm forcing to happen with no rhyme or reason? I still believe that is the biggest pitfall writer's hand is definitely a strong presence. Like Corey said, foreshadowing definitely plays a role here for sure. We didn't go too much into it, but that would be a whole tangent for another day.
Yeah, write that down. Write that down.
And just make your backstories compelling. Don't just expect your audience to forgive a character or even like a character because they're a sad, depressed person. You gotta put some more humanity into it. You gotta give something that the audience will connect and relate to. I think those are
my statement is you don't have to have the villain be redeemed to have a compelling villain. And do something different. Try it out. Take a risk. All right.
Take a risk indeed. Would it be more interesting for this minion to be redeemed over this one?
Or were they really the most evil all along? All right.
It's your story.
With that, thank you all for joining us this evening. We hope to see you tomorrow for Ace Attorney. Very, very fun times going into the second trial. Hopefully we don't die. And yeah, thanks for joining us. If you have any suggestions on topics you'd like us to talk about during these comic corners, we would be more than happy to hear those out in the Discord.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, prompts, please.
We only have so many topics, but all right. I think, if I remember correctly, Hans might be streaming, so I think we're gonna raid Hans. He is. All right, we're gonna raid.
Let's do it.
Hans. They're doing homebrew stuff over there, looking at Unearthed Arcana things. Really nice guy. Just hit 500 followers, so if you want, hang out over there. Otherwise, hope to see you tomorrow on Ace Attorney. Good night.
See you, everyone. Oh, 8:30 tomorrow for Ace Attorney, by the way.
Yes, it's 8:30 tomorrow, so be early or be squirrely, and
Squirrely?
Yeah, be there or be square, be early or be squirrely. And
all right, sure. I'll let you have that one.
All right then. Bye. Good night.
Later, everyone.